taking a look at an interesting little phenomena during going around and sometimes the direct takeoffs, and that is the risk of putting your flaps up too quickly. Now, one of the interesting things you get is that depending on the type of aircraft you have, is you have different flap retraction speeds. This is a Cessna 182 here. This is one of the nicer ones than the one that I normally operate, but the concept is basically going to be the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to intentionally create a go-around situation. Up here, lovely Keene, New Hampshire. You can see this pretty nice looking at Green Mountains there. We're going to level off right now under traffic pattern altitude. Take a peek at the lovely little airport there. And it's kind of nice today because there's no insane traffic trying to stop me from getting on the ground, kind of thing like that. Now, people who are well known into this particular region, who've been there quite a bit, would know that we never land in this direction. We must always land on runway 2, but that's perfectly fine because for the purposes of my demonstration, it'll illustrate the danger perfectly fine regardless of what we do. So one of the procedures on a Cessna or many aircraft, especially with electric flaps, is they tell you during a go-around situation is to retract flaps slowly. And now the reason they tell you to do that, of course, is because as your aircraft is now taking off, you're going to be under tremendous load, tremendous drag, and potentially very, very low speed. When you kind of combine those factors all into one, you run yourself into a situation where the probability of departure actually gets relatively high if you're not careful. The other problem is, as you're probably looking around at that large mountain directly off my nose there, is you run into the potential problem where you can't out-climb the terrain that is underneath you. Now, one of the nice things, of course, is when you are taking off, one of the things they have is this lovely thing called VX, which is basically going to be our best angle of climb speed. That's going to be the speed that no matter what, you're not going to get up quickly, but you're going to be at the steepest possible angle for the purposes of your actual approach to your landing that you're going to be trying to execute. Now, that's a great thing to have, but remember, if you're at that, you're nice and loaded, you're under full power, you're working really hard, you're already stressed out from the initial having to go around, and then you slam the flaps up. Let's find out what happens here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull myself into final here. Yeah, this plane needs a lot less rudder in the real world at this speed. Of course, in the real world, I wouldn't be coming in quite this high, but that's okay. So we're going to line ourselves up. Everything's looking pretty stable in descent. We want a good solid, usually between 60 and 70 is knots. It's pretty sweet for this plane. The one fun thing about a 182 is it gets wicked sinky. If you have one of the old 182s with the 40 degrees of flaps, it is an experience to behold just how sinky that plane gets at full flaps. So we're going to go ahead and approach. Looking pretty, actually, this is looking pretty darn good. Not going to lie here. I can probably turn this into a pretty successful landing. Oh, yeah, that's looking pretty good, looking pretty good. Oh, yeah, we just got to reduce power. Going to pull the power back, pretend. Oh, no, it's not looking right. Full power. Okay, now I'm going to slam the flaps up. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, boy. Oh, boy. No, you don't. Oh, no, 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 no. And, whoa. And a couple things I want you to observe there. The first one was we were absolutely at the mercy of being on the edge of a stall there. One little kind of touch one way or the other, and we probably would have departed and gone flying back to the ground. Now, the good news is the Cessna 182 does not have the world's most dangerous stall. It's very, very abrupt and bumpy, but it's not like you're going to drop a wing or something like that. But the interesting thing that you probably observed is the fact the aircraft refused to climb. It basically just sort of stood there and wasn't doing much of anything. Now, this particular version of the 182 is really, really powerful, so it basically brute forced its way through that particularly nasty spot. Now, if I were landing in the other direction, especially coming down into this one and I was going around, that lack of climb could have really, really hurt me. But you can see because of all that excess power, we did okay. This is a little different once you get to something a little smaller, though. All right, we've now switched to a Cessna 170. Basically the predecessor of the 172. It's got the tail dragger. It definitely will not have the same horsepower that the 180 does. And it's a nice and relaxing day. It's a little humid, kind of maybe one of these late, kind of like early fall days or kind of like late summer days. Aircraft's coming in looking pretty good. I see someone starting to pull out onto the end of the runway there. I really hope he gets out of the way because I'm getting awfully close to this runway. I would definitely like to settle down onto it right away and kind of plop this thing down. Now, this aircraft has another interesting complication, and that's the fact that it doesn't have electric flaps. So coming down, pull the power back, start to line up. Oh, shoot, go around. Pull the flaps up as fast as you can. Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh. Oh! And as you can see, we were doomed. The safest thing to do there would have been to build up the airspeed first, before trying to pull that off. So let's do that again, but do it right this time. Now, believe it or not, this is actually a pretty cool airplane. Even though it is basically as old school as you can get, it is. So same exact scenario. We're going to go around. We have our flaps all the way down. These are the big old 40-degree barn door flaps. And these I use this nice little handle in the floor, which means you can get up and down instantly, which helped illustrate my problem even more aggressively. Keep in mind, in the real world, too, the air pushing up against the flaps actually helps pull them up quicker. So that's kind of one of those interesting little things that we never think of in a flight sim. It's not that big deal. All right, so we're doing about 65 miles per hour. That's plenty low enough. I don't need to go any slower than this. And like my discipline is fighting me a little bit here because I'm like trying to, do an appropriate approach, even though you can see we're 1 dot low here. So pretty darn low. So again, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did last time, but this time we're going to be a little bit more careful and wait until things are stable before we start bringing those flaps out. Airspeed's good. Now we're looking at about 66 knots. That's lovely. 65. Good. Pretty good. We're going to settle down. Power's out. Come onto the runway. Go around. All right. Carefully bring up the first click. Bring up the next click. It's not going to climb. Bring up the next click. And flaps are out. Go ahead and stabilize at about 75 miles per hour. And things are much more stable. Also notice the fact that I'm not sticking my head straight up at the sky here, and we're climbing at a pretty decent rate here. Keep in mind, this is relatively warm day, pretty old school airplane, so we're not going to be doing 2,000 feet per minute. But you can definitely see how much more controlled, how much safer, how much easier that was rather than just bam, slapping that flap handle all the way up, putting us in that really nasty spot we were at the previous. Now, the interesting thing is when you do this with airliners, it gets very dangerous. But again, you wouldn't want to do those kind of things. So hopefully this makes sense, and it makes you just kind of realize that when you slap them up like that, that can be really, really risky, especially if the environment were a little bit rougher. Right now, it's not too bad, so it would have been incredibly sketchy. Maybe we have gusting winds or something that suddenly took away that lift we had at the last second, and then we're doomed. We have nowhere to go but down. Enjoy.